We are very lucky this afternoon to have Kevin Steward visiting here at Lemur Music. Kevin is a guy who has played upright bass since 1994. He is a self-taught musician and a tremendous slap style player. And Kevin came in to help you understand some of the great qualities of the Jupiter bass.
Not too in tune to them anymore, except for the slap players.
Well, there's the slap players and there's the wannabes. So you know, there's a whole succession of young people that get into it, and then you know, 20 years later, if they stick with it, they're going to be the experts. But meanwhile, you could be the one that shows them a lot of tricks. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the gut strings, I worked with this guy, Labella, and from these guys originally, when we asked for a plain gut E and A, the tendency is to make them about the same size as other E and A strings. And they're just too floppy. There's no tension, there's no pitch, there's no note. And so we worked with this guy to make them thicker, like that, and that's just really as feedback, asking you if are we hitting it about right to get some note out of these big strings.
I would say so. I have my 51K has a plain E, a Frano, but it's about 5 years old.
It's lasted 5 years.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, it's been on that bass for that long. Played countless gigs and recordings, and it's, you know, I can't hear it playing live, like acoustic, you know, like the G wouldn't be as prominent as that.
Okay.
And but on recordings it shows up perfect. You know,
wow.
You think it's like just going to be this thuddy clunk sound, and it comes in like you can hear the note.
This is what blew my mind when you first came over and picked up this bass. We got it all set up. I mean, you heard me, but you were playing it, and I thought, oh my God, I'm hearing the low notes on the E string with that fat, round sound. It sounded like, you know, the CBS recording studios in 1950. I thought, oh, maybe this is getting close to how they got that sound.
Right? I mean, the guts, I've always been a believer of them because that's exactly it. In the old, you know, the old recordings, that's all they had. Before steels came along, and
right.
Some of my favorite bass tone is from the old recordings.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about, I think that with use, like I see little hairs sticking out, that these things, that plain gut strings fray a little bit.
Yeah, they do.
What do you do?
Depends. I mean, I'm sure if I wasn't slapping, if it was just all pizzicato, it probably wouldn't wear out that much.
I'm guessing that they would still frizz out.
You think
know,
so?
I think so. Yeah. So what do you do about it?
I use 600 grit sandpaper, just tear off a little square and just kind of super lightly go over them. Some guys take nail clippers and clip every hair.
That's what I've heard about, little scissors or clippers.
Sanding to me just kind of keeps it still organic, because it kind of lets it fray out to a point that it won't, you know, if you clip it, it could be in a bad spot and it could start splitting really bad.
Okay.
The chunk could start unraveling.
And you know, I could say something, having been at the guy's place that makes these, and I wouldn't call it a factory, it's his garage, but the strings are pulled tight, twisted and dried, and then he runs them through a sanding machine to get them down to size. So sanding makes sense to me. They were sanded in the first place.
Yeah.
Do you put any oil on?
Put just a dab of olive oil.
I've heard of olive oil.
Just extra.
Does that mean you're Italian?
No.
Okay. sorry.
But I love olive oil in Italian food.
A little olive oil.
Yeah, just like a dime-sized drop on a paper towel for each string, and let them, you know, if it's a little goopy, I'll wipe them off with a dry paper towel.
Like the next day, do you still feel the oil, or does it soak in?
A little bit. I usually, you know, it depends how dry it is too. Humid weather, they don't dry out as quick. Like
Okay.
they're still pretty, you know, you can tell by the tone and the color. They start to get kind of white and dry looking, and
Oh.
just lube them up, and I just let them.
So if they
I usually do it before a gig, like. You know,
Okay.
If I play like a 3 or 4 gig weekend, they'll get kind of like this, and then by Thursday, you know, I'll clean them up when I'm warming up.
So what I'm hearing, I'm listening, and you're telling me that you play the strings, they start to lighten in color and dry out essentially, and then you add a little olive oil and it brings them back to life.
Yep. Like I said, I
That's
can't believe
great.
the E strings lasted that long on the case.
How long?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so I think I should step aside and let's hear what this bass sounds like.
All right. Slap pattern thing.
It sounds great. I love the double stops, and as usual, I'm scoping in on the low notes.
Yeah.
Because I think it's hard to get gut string unwound, plain gut strings, to have any kind of a clear pitch on those low notes, and so you're getting that.
Yeah. I mean that's why I like the bass line, 'cause it kind of goes across the whole spectrum.
The low G you're talking about.
Here,
Yeah, just kind of pluck those low notes, the E. So when you've got a bass set up like this, you're on the bandstand or in the studio, what other styles of playing besides the slap do you use this setup for?
Mainly slap, pizzicato. I'm a plucker too, like old blues dude. Not quite slap, not quite pizzicato. You know, just getting volume and.
Go ahead and demonstrate that. I want to hear it.
I'm trying to think of like any old Django tune, kind of like.
Oh. That's great because you can add intensity, but when you start adding the slapping,
it's a little dynamic stuff, you know.
Very much.
Can do it like a.
snare drum, a little quick roll down onto the note.
Like a drum
So-
flammer.
I did meet once a slap bass player who lives in Austin. He would never play with a drummer on stage. What about you? Are you performing with drums some, or
Play drums. I prefer drummerless.
you prefer
I used to
drummerless?
play in a drummerless rockabilly trio. The hot jazz group I'm in, we do no drums. A little bit of maracas here and there. You know, the singer, she'll break out maracas, but it's just
Sure.
pretty much me and the rhythm, just chugging along and keeping the rhythm.
Oh, yeah. When you say, I
like
think,
rhythm guitar player. just
yeah, I'm thinking Django and that
Yeah.
chug, chug, chug,
Yeah.
chug, chug type sound
Like
on a.
same with bluegrass. You know, bluegrass kind of has that same downbeat rhythm guitar, and bass just
Yeah.
chugs it. And that music, you can't, you know, just wouldn't be the same with drums. You know, But
Right, I'm with
it
I'm
totally
with you on that.
changes the whole dynamic of playing, though. Like, I mean, say like a rockabilly 1-4-5 song, like Folsom Prison Blues. Like, I mean, I would just do that with a drummer just to lock in with him. But without a drummer, you can do like a lot of.
I get the idea. So if there's a drummer on stage, I mean, this is what we all do as bass players. You got to lock in and play
Yeah.
together, so your playing is going to remain simpler.
Yeah, let him do more of the rhythmatic, you know. I mean, there's so many bands that kind of bassists that don't get that. It's like when I'm on a gig with a drummer, it's like, oh, I finally get to just take it easy tonight and
Sure.
relax and not have to fill and carry so much
Yeah.
of the extra weight.
But if it's drummerless, as you say, then it gives you the freedom to. I mean, I heard those triplets and offbeat things that you
Yeah.
can throw in, and so
It's just you gotta kind of think like a drummer as well as a bass player, you know. And
okay.
it's always what I try to keep in mind, you know.
This is Spot. I'd like to introduce you to Spot. We have a blinking red light.
Oh,
But how the heck can they get that string that size through there?
it's not that fat.
It's huge.
I think they're pretty standard. This actually feels a little bit thinner than the
Then?
one I have. But yeah, I mean, there has been some tight squeezes before on some basses I've worked on. but-
Lots. I mean, actually, my method with steel strings is the string goes through the hole twice.
Yeah.
So it's actually several of the E strings won't go the second time.
Yeah.
And I got to cut off a lump or something to get them to do that.
And some of them you have to like wrap towards the inside of the peg box.
Oh, I do that all the
towards
time.
wall.
I do that all the time. What we do usually here is, I don't know, let's see what's going on. Yeah, like this G string is an example. It goes through the hole, and then you wind it the wrong way and use up all the extra length over here somewhere, and then come back so that the string goes straight from the peg directly to the slot, the slot in the nut.
I just noticed that. It's good.
So
Yeah,
let
there's
me
nothing
let me
worse than-
let me see if we did a good job. Yeah, pretty good. But the idea is to have the strings coming from the peg straight out to the nut without crossing.
Yeah. Or
So it's-
sitting on top, like, I mean, that's fine. But
Yeah. just have it. I guess looking neat is one part of it, and
Yeah.
every now and then we've heard a buzz,
Yeah.
or
Up there.
found a buzz up there, because whenever there's a buzz, you can never figure out where it's coming
Yeah.
from immediately. Well, since you took a minute to tune up, why don't you give us a little demonstration of the different styles for which it makes sense to use a bass set up with plain gut strings. So
Okay.
how about a little bit of that slap style?
So that's just Latin-y. How you doing, Jeff?
Yeah, it's all very informal. What's going on? Oh. It's all very informal. What's going on? Oh. What other styles make sense when you've got an instrument set up like this?
You know, any style, unless you have a certain jazz tone. I mean, bebop, jazz, and fusion, and like a lot
Okay.
of styles of jazz, I would say wouldn't work. And for the main reason is just the attack and tension of the strings.
Do you have any trouble getting clear pitch, let's say in a recording session, out of these strings?
I've never had a problem. Some people might think the tone's too bassy, because there are guys that are unlike me that love only steel string and the tone.
Right. I mean, I love that modern jazz sound
Yeah.
that's all singing and sustaining, but that's not the only sound.
But me, I've always been happy on recordings with how
So
guts
let's
sound.
come on through.
I have a question. How does amplification factor into the way this bass sounds as opposed to the way a steel string bass sounds?
I mean, with all amplification, that kind of a little subjective to EQing preferences and again, like what your ears want it to sound like. Me, I play through a 410 solid state Ampeg with an Underwood, no preamp, just straight from the pickup into the amp. Crank my master, bring up the gain accordingly depending on the room and how big the venue is and if it's mic'd or, you know, I always try to mic my cab instead of DI just because it sounds more natural to me.
What
And
miking technique do you feel is best for this type of bass?
Well, you're talking about mic in the cabinet right now, not the bass.
Yeah, amplified.
Oh, okay, I see.
I'll get back to that for like recordings and live shows. But playing through the amp, I usually just turn my mids all the way off, if have a little bit, and then bring my bass up about 12 o'clock and treble about 9 o'clock on the dial to get to me it sounds the closest to the acoustic tone of the bass. More mids will make it really squeaky and you can hear finger noise and
Yeah.
Right.
but for like recording, I like an old Neumann ribbon mic, like right here.
That would be good.
That's how I prefer to record, and just always acoustic. I'd never DI the bass, nothing. Just no matter how loud the band is that I'm recording with, live setting, separated, always acoustic. It's
Have
just
you ever
always.
recorded with an amp on and in the room, but the bass still mic'd?
Not with a double bass. I've always recorded acoustic. Either like pointed in a corner like
interesting.
this,
Yeah,
or like
It's very
just
interesting.
ribbon mic right in front. I've recorded with SM57s and it sounds fine too. It just depends on the room you're in and the engineer, I guess.
Actually, I like 57s a lot.
Yeah.
57s are kind of a flat response mic,
Mhm.
and they're not bad on the low end. So I've heard people tell me that it works well for kick drum, for example.
Yeah, I just did a jazz gig at a club in LA playing straight into a 57 with this on stage with just me and a violinist and a guitar player.
So I'm going to ask a kind of a loaded question that has to do specifically with this Jupiter bass. The tone of the size of this bass and the tone of this bass, does that help the kind of sound that you're going for with these plain gut strings?
Definitely. It helps so much. I love big boomy bass. And
Yeah.
I love it to thump and I want to feel it more than hear it, honestly. And it's the low end on this. I mean, you can just, when you get down to the lower strings, you can just feel it just come alive and rumble and
Yeah.
like really gives me what I want.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to hear
The
that.
size is perfect for me 'cause being a taller guy.
Yeah, you seem to be a tall guy, all right.
I always have a problem with basses that seem too narrow or small, and
Okay.
I have to extend it all the way up, and it's just this thing just
It's working.
feels perfect. I mean, I've never gotten to play a real 7/8 size for this long, and I've completely just fallen in love with it.
Okay. All right.
Excuse my rear.
So, Bob, get a snap underneath the tailpiece because of these knots.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
you were talking about that. It's a good idea.
I mentioned that, and I thought, well,
I might as well catch up here. I'm looking to see if I can see it in there.
you could,
Different camera.
you could.
I'm sure.
And are you okay with the flash being on?
Yeah.
That makes sense for
Yeah.
what you want.
Well, the camera says it makes sense, and it's on auto, so I'm going to listen to the camera.
Okay.
But yeah, every time I walk by this bass, it just makes me think Tom and Jerry, Is You Is or Is You Ain't My Baby, and I always go in and I always play. It's like the opening bass line to it. It just looks like an old bass that, you know, Willie Dixon would have been thumping on, or, you know.
Is that a Cab Calloway tune?
Is you is
Yeah.
is you ain't?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think the Tom and Jerry version is Cab Calloway. But
Yeah,
it's-
because let's see, that's not Disney. Tom and Jerry is,
They were independent.
Yeah, Chuck Jones or something.
I don't know.
Before we went to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
but I just know that a lot of early cartoons have great music, including some Cab Calloway music.
Yeah.
When they're,
So
when,
good.
when they're belting it out, singing it.
Rascal. I love that song. It's Django's version of You Rascal.
Okay.